Will all the aldermen please take their seats? Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2019-2020 Board of Aldermen Budget Deliberations. Today is May 8th, 2019, and today we are here for the departmental presentation portion of the aldermanic budget process. But before we begin, please join me as we salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Alderman Anderson. Alderman Beatty.
Alderman Beatty is going to be here shortly.
Alderman Fortunati.
Here.
Alderman Gaynor. Here. Alderman Gurman.
Here.
Alderman Gennatasio. Here. Alderman Golden.
Here.
Alderman Grant. Alderman Hardeman. Here. Alderman Smith. Here. Alderman Sutton.
Alderman Sutton would like to get excused tonight, Madam Secretary.
Alderman Tranquilli. Here. Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Here.
Alderman Vitro.
Here.
Alderman Vitale.
Madam Secretary, Alderman Vitale may not be here tonight. He's running late.
Thank you. 11 present.
We have 11 present. We do have a quorum. At this point, the first department organization on our agenda is the Police Department, page 43. Welcome, Chief Mello and Chief Ron.
Good evening. I was just telling the finance director we're pretty big on data, and so we run these spreadsheets with totals from year to year and percentage increases, and then I realized that Munis does all that now. So this will be the last year we'll do those calculations by hand. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening, and nice to see you again. I unfortunately only get a chance to see you once a year. This is my 14th budget. So I've, like many of you, I've been doing this a while, and there's a number of you, a few of you at least, that were here when I did my first budget, and felt like I was a hero because I found some accounts that where I thought overfunded, and I volunteered those accounts, and thought that would be the last time that I would have my budget cut, and for the remaining 13 years, that hasn't been the case, and actually every year is basically the same. So it's a pleasure to be here. Just wanted to just go through a couple things just to start, and certainly be happy to answer any questions. So when we look at the request for this year, the overall budget increase is over 5%. But I think there's a couple things that's important to remember, and like all budgets, our budget is approximately 90% personnel costs, and those costs are not controlled by the agency. They're controlled by the contracts that are negotiated between the city and the union. So those personnel costs are what they are, which certainly speaks to a lot of that increase. But there's a couple other areas. And in addition to that, when you look at the personnel services accounts, all those accounts are increased as a result of wage increases. But there were a few accounts that I wanted to just bring forward. So when we look at the car account, and we look at the increase in cars, and that was that increase is a result of the higher price of cars. The Ford Explorer has been replaced with another Explorer that costs a lot more than the previous model. So while there's an increase in there, there's no increase in the number of cars. In fact, I looked at the budget when I first became chief. I looked at Chief Flaherty's budget 15 years ago. He got more money 15 years ago than I get in any of these budgets over the last few years. In fact, if you looked at the money that he got in today's dollars, it's $303,000. At the same time, cars were less than half of what they are now. Policing is expensive. Equipment is expensive. The cars are double. The equipment we put in them is about $15,000 more than what we had years ago. And so I understand it's expensive. So we continue to get less and less cars, and that concerns me because it is an infrastructure issue. And nevertheless, we've been able to manage. It's important, though, that as we continue to manage and we develop a plan, and planning is something that's very important to us, and you'll probably hear me say that several times today, because this budget is a plan, and it isn't just for this year. But as we continue to plan, we stretch out the purchase of those cars. This year, we're in an emergency budget shutdown. We're not buying any cars this year. We can absorb that as long as we buy them next year, and we buy them right away, and we'll stretch that out. So it's important as we do that, and we continue to go forward and look for ways to take money out of these budgets, that we support infrastructure and we support the plan. And even if it's a modified plan, it's important because it is a plan. The body-worn cameras, that's a commitment that we made. It's a statutory commitment that we made when we took that $200,000+ from the state to purchase body cameras, the initial hardware and software cost for that first year. You'll see that at the end of the capital outlays, and that additional $19,000, that's contractual. Those are things we have to do, and that's going to continue to go up. We've had body cameras before anybody in the country was anyone in this state was talking about body cameras. You didn't hear about them. It was 8 years ago, right? We recognize the value that it has for the police and for the public, but that's expensive, and so we have to continue to fund that. And then, so there's a couple other things in there that we added. For instance, radar speed signs that were important to all of, to your constituents and our residents that are having numerous complaints about areas where there's speeding and people going too fast. So we have a plan to put these digital radar signs up. They've been very effective. Governor's Avenue is one. Governor's Avenue was a common area of complaint. You don't really hear about that anymore, and so we added that, and that's a tune of over $25,000. But the key item that I wanted to point out, two key items. The first one is overtime, and I hope we get back to overtime, because it's important that you and the people that watch on TV really understand how we fund overtime and how we spend overtime. But before that, the $152,000 increase in the Motorola communication account. So if you remember, and I remember because I save everything. I save all the tapes and of all my appearances here, and I said every year, in 4 years, in 3 years, in 2 years, next year, we're going to see the Motorola account come due, and that's going to be the support cost. That's going to continue to go up. And so what we did, if you remember, we developed this long-term plan to combine police, fire, EMS, dispatch. And we said a couple things that we were going to do. Number one, we said we're going to build them a dispatch center, and we haven't done that. So we reneged on that so far. And that's problematic, and someday we can discuss that even further. We moved them over to the police department budget, but we didn't move their overtime costs over there. We can talk about that in overtime, and that's a $91,000 hit that we get every year that isn't showing up on this budget. That had come out of our existing money. But we also took on the police-fire communication system. It didn't make sense to continue to separate it between police and fire, so we took it all. And so those support costs, while they're in the PD budget, are for the radio system for police-fire. Well, we have to pay that, and I've asked you every year, just made a comment that please don't understand that this is coming due. We could have negotiated it every year in the original budget, but we tried to keep the bond down, and so we said, let's push it back. So now it's due, and so to have that 5% reflected on us and expect that we would take that somewhere else, out of training or out of overtime or out of cars or out of equipment, key components of a public safety operation. I just wanted to just remind you that, we knew this was coming, and so that's where a lot of that increase comes from, and so I just wanted to point that out. And then there's also an increase in the overtime, and the mayor and I spoke about this because it's no secret that these budgets don't reflect the amount of overtime actually used. I've been doing this for 14 years. It never has. And so as we understand that, it's important that everybody understands that. And so this was an effort to add additional money towards that budget, knowing that we needed to get closer to what we actually needed. I would like to just talk to you a little bit about overtime and how overtime is managed. And so one of the things that we try to do when we do our budgets is we do this long-term plan. And we started with replacement cycles for everything. When I became chief, I put everything on a replacement cycle, knowing that it's for the long-term health. Now, not every chief does that. Some chiefs are going to do, quite honestly, they'll budget year to year because they're not worried about what happens next year. They're only worried, but I think we have to worry about these budgets in our program for the next group of folks. And so we look at that and we determine what we used last year, what we need this year, but we also do comparisons, not cherry-picking comparisons. Apples to apples, oranges to oranges. So how do we do that? So you got to really take a deep dive when you do that, right? And you got to look at not just the highest or the lowest. It wouldn't make sense to compare it with Stratford and Greenwich. You got to look at others. And there's things we look at, not just the size, but the complexity, the number of calls for service, the number of programs, right? Because that's apples to apples. So digging in very deeply, that's what this is, just with all the supporting material. So when we look at the amount of overtime that we use, I just wanted to give you a comparison to what other towns use. And we've backed this up not just with their budgets and with the apples to apples, we've also made contact with all these departments and said, explain your process to us. So the best information that we have, again, the best information we have is East Hartford, very valid comparison, 1.3 million, 352,000 for vehicles. Fairfield, we can even talk about training. They get East Hartford gets 176,000 for training. Fairfield gets $405,000 for training overtime. They get $2 million plus for overtime and 396,000 for cars. Again, apples to apples, best information that we have. Hamden, similar operation, 1.329 million. Meriden, 210,000 for training, 1.5 million for overtime, 213 for cars. Stratford, right next door, 220 for overtime, 940,000 for overtime, 217 for vehicles. West Hartford, 1.2, West Haven, 1.6. So, and the reason I say we don't cherry pick is when I think of Milford, I think of Fairfield, and because if you think about it, which is probably the reason why we don't get all this money from the state, because this is a financially strong community, thanks to our mayor and our previous mayors and all of you, and I believe the department heads as well. I'm proud to work in this city where we don't see tax increases, and we don't have, we have surpluses, we have minimal, if any, tax increases. We have a good bond rating. I think we're all should, celebrate that. But I think on balance, we need to know what that really means, right? Like, where does that money come from, that savings, right? If 90% of your budget is going to go up, and we know goods and services aren't going down, where does that come from? And so we just have to recognize that it comes from somewhere, and there's an impact. And I think the impact's important. And so that's really all I'm trying to do is talk about the impact. So when we look at our overtime budget, I'd like to say that we are in such strong financial shape that I think that we're probably closer to a Fairfield than a Stratford. I was born in Stratford. I went to school there. I hope I haven't offended anyone in Stratford. But, I'm glad we're Milford. So those are pretty good comparisons. So when we look at what we've spent, and as we go through, this year's figure of 550,000, the year before of 505, the previous year is at 490. And we start to add other things in there because there's the training overtime account at $100,000, and we have some other overtime accounts. You start to pull everything together. We're still well below all those towns, and some of those towns were half. So when we spend more than what's there, it's not that we're spending outside our budget. The numbers are the numbers. When you look at overtime, it's a little bit of a complex equation, and Peter knows this equation. And so I won't go into too much detail, but it isn't just that we're spending that kind of money putting extra patrols or spending too much time on the boat or too many community service events. Every time a police officer takes vacation, and the vacation is granted by the contract, so we know how much vacation everyone's going to use. It's a definitive number. It's easy to determine. And so when we look at that, we know that when we have to hire by contract, supposed to, contract, right? Legally binding agreement. City attorney, I don't know where he is, but, and so we know we're supposed to hire 60% of those jobs, right? We have to hire back open assignments and vacations at 60%. Get to that in a second. So that 8 hours for that officer that worked that job, 60% of those jobs, 8 hours comes out of the vacation account. The other 4 hours comes out of overtime. Every time we know how many holidays we have. We have 13 holidays, and how many officers are working on holidays. When you sign for a holiday, we have to backfill 60%. We know that the first 8 hours comes out of the holiday account, and the other 4 hours comes out of vacation account. So when we do a quick breakdown and we look at if 95,000 minimum is coming out just for the 4 hours of vacations, and 134 are coming out for holidays, and we start to look at the 91,000 now that we've been burdened with. We didn't get this. You didn't give the city of the police department $91,000 more when we took on this important project of combined dispatch, which is, by the way, saved lives. Like I told you, it saved lives. We're there at the same time FD's there, and we partner together, and we're saving lives. Factual information can provide you with real information about how many times we've hit people with Narcan and done CPR, and because we're all going out at the same time. Just like we said it would, it's achieved those results. But it needs to be supported. Otherwise, we're just taken away from our program. So as we start to look at holiday, dispatcher, vacation, we're looking at, and then we add the 60% open assignments, that's $858,000 if we do that. That's before we hire someone for an investigation. We have a major crime. We have a storm. We have a parade. We have prisoners. We have training events. All the things that probably most people think that's what we're spending all this money on. Well, we're not. We manage that very, very carefully. Very carefully. I can't imagine that anyone else can do a better job than we can determining how much overtime we should or shouldn't use. We've been doing it for a long time. From the sergeant does it, the lieutenant does it, the captain, the deputy chief, and me. There's all those layers of people that know our business and know what's in the best interest of public safety. And so that's how we keep the numbers below what a lot of these cities do. But we can't give you more, because if we do, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have less police officers on the street, and you're going to have fewer response times, and you're going to have investigations where we're not going to call out specialists. We're not going to call detectives out. We're not going to be doing the crime scene investigations. We'll go back to the years of waiting until Monday and not coming out on the weekend because we don't have the overtime to do it. We've so far gone past that. Now, I guess one could say that, well, you spend a lot of money in training. You train, and why do you train so much? Stop training, take these people out of training, take them out of special units. And we can do that, but do we want to do that? Because if we can't afford to fund these operations, then let's do that. And then let's tell the public, we are not going to give you the sophistication and the training that you've come to expect. I can tell you, there's a couple officers right now that are really hoping they got the right training. And departments and cities and communities thinking, I hope we trained our police officers. I hope that's not where we needed to cut back. So it's a question of, can we afford it or do we want to afford it? So I don't want, on balance, to have to take money out of training. I don't want to cancel our training academy. I don't want to train to the minimums. That's all. That's just minimum training. That's like a soldier or a Marine going to basic training and never getting any more training. We wouldn't be the armed services that we have, because all that specialized training is important. You know, we just finished, we have 2 polygraph examiners here. Yeah, we don't need that. You know, we don't have to do that, but that's who we are, right? I hope that's who we are. So I want you to understand, and please ask me any questions you want when it comes to overtime. We are managing overtime. We are not staying within our budget, and it's because we can't. And I'm not even asking for more money today. I'm not saying give me more money. I'm saying we'll continue to manage. We'll continue to move things around. And even though it says these things are funded, we all know they're not. We know that everything isn't funded. We know that at the end of the year we're going to have to find money. But we also know that when we have openings, like we have every couple years, that we're going to have that money as surplus in the regular wage account, and that we can transfer that out. And so those of us that do this know that that's not a secret, but it shouldn't appear that we're overspending, because we're not. Again, we can have philosophical discussions, and I'll take whatever instructions are given to me. We can train less, but I have to say to you and to publicly, I think that's a huge mistake, and I don't think it's fair to the officers. I don't think it's fair to the public. So. Also understand that we also have people on military deployment all the time. We have 2 officers. So we're down 2 officers. So we have to hire 60% of those vacancies have to be hired for. That's expensive. You know, we support our military. Well, shouldn't we fund that? Or is supporting our military mean that when people are deployed that we'll just take 2 less police officers away from the public? Or we'll train less? Because to me, supporting our troops in the military mean that we fund it. And so, and the same thing with dispatch. To expect that we absorb I never knew I had to absorb $91,000 out of overtime when I did that. Again, I'm not asking for more money. We'll make it work. I'm just pointing out the impact and asking that hopefully, like we have done this before, that in July we start to go back to the way things were. And I've been told that's what's going to happen, and that's what I expect. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you and to the chiefs, thank you for all your work. It's a great department. So the overtime, so 2017-18, you had 637,000. Last year you had, did it come out to 505 or was it more than that?
No, it was more than that. So this year we'll spend more than we'll spend $500,000 more than what we were allocated. Last year, in 2018, we spent 137. We had a strategy not to train as much, and we had a strategy, we didn't have any openings. It was one of the few years we were completely full. The prior year, it was a shortfall of 295,000. In 2016, we had a shortfall of 459,000. Remember too, we actually have additional officers. So there's another $11,000 for SRO overtime that is actually absorbed in there as well. I'll make one point when you're finished too that I failed to make, but please.
So you're looking at more of the 650,000 rather than 550, realistically.
Well, this year we'll need $950,000 to make it. I can tell you what it'll be next year, if you'd like. And I think I came pretty close to that when I said we need the 650. That wasn't going to get us there, but I know, and we know that we've never done that. I've never seen a budget where we've planned for what we really need, because we know that there are going to be surpluses in accounts. But see, we know what those surpluses are. And we've never had to come back from, I think we may have to come back this year. There's a good possibility we may not make it for the first time.
And one follow-up, so how many positions are unfilled at this point?
So we have 8 positions unfilled. We have an officer that's out injured, and we have 2 officers that are on military leave. So we're down 13 positions right now. So I can add, and here's how we're doing it. We're supposed to hire 60%. And I can tell you what we do hire. 42%, I'm gonna go month to month, 56%, 43%, 51%, 58%, 48%, 69%, 64%, 40%, 54%, 38%. That's not even close to 60. If we did it, we would have to come back and ask for more money. And the numbers are pretty, we know what 60% costs. And so these are the numbers that we hit so we can stay within the budget. Or not within the budget, we know what's going to be left for surpluses. So we are doing our best. But again, when you look at this, and we look at it under that lens, we're doing a really good job. And you think about all the services that we give to Milford. If you're involved in just about any kind of crime, we're not the computer crime, frauds, forensics, anything you think of, we are equipped to handle that. The only way we could save more money is we could dumb it down. We could degrade the department to degrade the level of sophistication, right? Because then you don't have to fund all those things. And I know it's expensive, but all these other communities know it's expensive too.
You have a follow-up, Alderman Gerber? Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought you were finished.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Chief Mello, I cannot be more impressed with your department.
Thank you.
I believe that the police are our local heroes. It's an exceptional department, very professional. And I also want to say that anytime I've ever had any questions, when I come to you, you're very quick to answer those. You get back to me very quickly. So I do want to show my appreciation for that.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you what you're looking at in terms of crime rates in Milford, and if you can speak to that.
I'm sorry, because if we're talking about, are we talking about part 1, or do you know what kind of? So if you want generalities, I can give you generalities. If you want absolute figures per category, I can give you that kind of offline. So the crime of choice in Milford is breaking into cars and stealing cars, actually going into open cars. And so a lot of that's being perpetrated by juveniles. In fact, we're looking at, and if you look at our policies here are a little bit different than maybe what some other cities have. We're not chasing kids for stolen cars. We're not doing some of those things that we think are problematic in society today. And I think you'll see law enforcement, most of law enforcement is going in that direction. I think it'll continue to go in that direction. That doesn't help the crime rate. That's not going to be a deterrent to young kids that want to steal cars. But on balance, with young people getting in cars, and we know they're going to probably run and probably crash, and there's a lot that can happen. We feel here in Milford that we have our policy is the right policy for so many reasons, and we can talk quite a bit about that. But that is the crime of choice. It's an easy crime to perpetrate. It's perpetrated by a lot of young people. We are the 95 corridor. We have more exits on and off than anyone else, and that's why you'll see those that follow we push a lot of stuff out, and people will say, well, I never knew those things happen in Milford. Well, they do, because it's easy to get on and commit a crime and get back off. We have an exceptional solve rate. When all the towns were struggling with all these car break-ins and 20, sometimes 25 a night, we put together a task force. Yeah, it cost money, but it was so productive. We were preventing crimes, we were solving crimes, we were catching kids in the act, and it was just mostly kids. Robberies have ticked up, and robberies have ticked up because we saw those 3 robberies in Milford Center, and that was really disturbing. We solved those robberies. There's one robbery right now that, for all practical purposes, there hasn't been an arrest made, so you could assume that it hasn't been solved. But our people do a really good job, but we put a lot of effort into it. We bring detectives out right away. We don't wait until it's cold. We do forensic examinations, and you see, in Milford, we've developed a partnership. Law enforcement doesn't know any boundaries. We're different than any other department because we can't operate just for our taxpayers. We have to operate for everyone, right? It's our mission. It's our responsibility. So we train other departments. They train us. We work with them. They work with us. And people are pretty eager to help Milford PD because we know who to call. And so we have a great reputation as being a premier agency. And so we get people to help us all the time. And so it's not just our work, it's the work of the neighboring police departments that are so helpful to us. But those are the crimes, and we have seen an uptick in burglaries, but in violent crime is down. And for the most part, a lot of those crimes are static. What's important about that is that Army presence of being out there and making people feel safe. So crime rates are important, and we can look at numbers going up and down, but most people don't recognize that. They just want to know that they don't want to be afraid of who's in their neighborhood or who's going to come into their neighborhood, or are they going to be a victim.
Chief, I just want to make a couple of remarks, one of which is I appreciate that most of the accounts here, I'm looking at all these accounts, I've looked at all these accounts, and most of them has remained the same, and I know you're definitely doing some creative budgeting. How's the distracted driving working out for is this the month that we just passed, April, was the initiative for distracted driving?
Yes, it is. So we take advantage of any alternative funding we can. I mean, we do well with all of our private duty funds. It's really what keeps the operation, going beyond just, the normal everyday stuff. And distracted driving is a grant made available to us. It's a reimbursement grant. So you approve, we spend the money, then we get the money back. And it's an important program. Distracted driving is, we've had a big impact on that. There's less enforcement, but that just means more compliance. I mean, people are really starting to recognize how important that is. But it's something that we need to be out there all the time. Once the community stops doing it, then people will realize they don't have there's not a strong likelihood they're going to be given a ticket, and they'll start to maybe go back. But it has been a very successful program, and we're grateful that the state keeps giving us the money to do that.
The crossing guards, is the reason why it's on the police department's responsibility is because it's part of public safety? I always want to know why that's not a Board of Education expense.
That's a very good question. It's always been there. I'm thinking it's a good trade-off that since we didn't get the money for the dispatchers, you can just take that away and just leave that money in there, and we can call that a wash. That would be a pretty good. No, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know.
I just thought that it might be just the public safety issue, but.
I know we manage it because maybe that's why we have to manage it, because a lot of times people will call in sick and we actually have to put police officers out there in the morning. So I'm sure that's probably, I can't think of any other reason why.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you again to the chief. It's interesting you talked about car theft. I had my car stolen last year out of my driveway, and they found it up in New London. So that's interesting. Yeah. Do they actually do anything to these kids when they catch them?
I guess it depends on how you define did they do something and who you ask. I'm going to say, for the most part, very little, because they're kids, and we have the Juvenile Justice Initiative in the state, and I think it's an important initiative. And so kids are not treated as adults, and they know that. They know that they can run from the police, and they're going to be released. We see an enormous amount of repeat offenders. So we've worked through the Chiefs Association to try to have an impact on that. It's a difficult scenario. Under the juvenile justice plan, do we raise the penalties? There's not a strong appetite to do that. So maybe there isn't a very strong disincentive not to steal cars. But it's important that people lock their cars. The good news is if you lock them normally, they're just going to go to someone else, normally. But the concern is what happens when people start locking their cars and they're in these neighborhoods, and what level of crime do they go to next?
So I did have a question, sorry, Mr. Chairman. So the police cruisers, you have a budget of $220,000. How many cars does that represent?
That'll represent about 5.5, which is down from 12 to 14 when I first made chief. But I also, these cars last longer now. They're better than they were years ago, and they're also very expensive. There's a lot in these cars, but we can't we can push cars out like we did this year. We're not getting any cars this year. We can do that. We can push that out. We just can't push it out 2 years in a row. Because that impact would be problematic, because now you're just dealing with first-line cars that have too many miles on. Because these cars are stop and go. They're on 24 hours a day. They really get banged up. We used to have a 3-year replacement cycle on computers. It's an 8-year replacement cycle now. They don't last 8 years because they're, in a car, they're getting banged around. And so the life of those cars is a lot less. So what we'll do with this is I say 5.5 cars. We'll take money from the private duty car account that when you see we rent cars for construction site. We buy detective cars and specialty cars. You've never seen, this year I put a motorcycle in here. It wasn't approved, but you've never had to buy a motorcycle or these specialty cars. All those come somewhere else. And so if we feel the need, we'll just take money from that. We did one year. We took most of the budget out. Mayor and I had talked about that and agreed that we had enough money in that other account that we would just buy from that account. So that's how we'll supplement.
Alderman Anderson.
Evening, Chiefs.
Good evening.
I'd like to echo the words of Alderman Golden. I think your department is exceptional. All of my interactions have been very professional.
Thank you.
And I deeply appreciate the way in which the department is managed.
Thank you.
When I look at some of the other police departments around the state, I have to say that I question some of the policies that are executed and some of the results that are heartbreaking, and I'm glad that's not our experience in Milford. I wonder if you can touch on the academy, the expenses that are involved with the academy, what kind of revenue comes in, how many individuals are in a recruitment class, and how widespread do you bring recruits in from around the state?
Sure.
Thank you.
And thank you for your question. And I apologize if I don't have those exact numbers in my head. I did provide the mayor with a document last year, so we can look at direct costs or indirect costs. Somebody asked me a question about how much money did you spend on something, and I said, do you want direct costs or indirect costs? You want to know how many meetings we attended, how many consultants we met with? Then it's a big number. But so the indirect would be, if they weren't doing this, they'd be doing someone else. So we focus, for the most part, on direct costs, and there were very little direct costs because we didn't bill. Ken and I, first of all, don't bill, but the other staff does. So with the academy, we try to manage it with indirect costs, especially this year. So our academy is in session. There's 6 satellite academies, 7 academies. I know a lot about training, and I have the qualifications to back that up if you're interested. So Meriden trains basic training for a lot of different agencies. Satellite academies are very successful. Most people will tell you they prefer to go to a satellite academy because we train to specifics, and we train to a culture. And we train our people the way we want them trained. And we believe it's paid extraordinary dividends. And as a result, one thing that we found was if we invite others to participate, it's less expensive. I've gone to the Milford Academy. Kenny's going to the Milford Academy. We're the longest running satellite academy. We've all gone to the Milford Academy. The only ones that don't go is on occasion when we don't have an academy to put in place that we send someone there. So it's not just tradition. It has a history of success. Very proud of that. So what we do is we invite other agencies. And now we build these agencies. We build them 1,500. Next year we'll start, if we have another academy, we'll start, is it 15 or 2,000? 15. We can go up to 2,500, but we really can't do 2,500 because we don't do a live-in academy. So we can probably go up to about $2,000. Other departments pay us for that, but here's what else they do. They give us their instructors. So we get the best instructors. We don't have to worry about a situation where, say at the Post Academy, where there are retired police officers that have been retired for 20 plus years that do a great job, but are removed from the field. We get practitioners from the field. We get to pick and choose. And we get to share that burden with everyone else. And then at the same time, we don't have to spend a month at the end of that academy training them to our policies. We've already done that. So now we have this, we were given this use of this building at Simon Lake, which is really the bridge that helps us with our space issues, but it also allows us to provide training functions both at the academy, but more importantly, at the in-service level. We're doing things that we wouldn't have any other place to do. And remember, we used to be at the Egan Center, or we would call, we had something here or something there, or we'd ask other towns. We're not doing that anymore. We normally don't run an academy unless we have 9 to 10 people. This year time we did it with 8 or 7, and then we went to 8. Because we look at what makes sense for us. And we do it at a time, we try to do it in the summer because we need police officers on the road in the summer. And so we also try to reassign people from the academy or from the road on shifts that are well-staffed. So we don't have to, and we don't allow them to collect overtime. We did up until this year. We don't allow them to collect any overtime. You look at, here's what happens, and if you're watching the news, the first thing they say, where were they trained and how were they trained? We have the virtual system. That's important. That's not going away. We just upgraded it. In fact, you have all the other departments pay for the upgrade, the $83,000 upgrade. It was paid for by every other department except Milford. Because we have a strategy, right? We have a long-term strategy on how to pay for things. But we put people in stressful environments. We do it all the time because we want to know that they can function and make decisions, and we try to fix those things then. It doesn't mean bad things can't happen. We're human beings. People can certainly make mistakes. So that's the benefit of the academy. The numbers, when you take into account the number of instructors that we get in kind, when you take into account, because when you send someone to Meriden, you still have to provide resources to help train them. We take in the revenue, we look at what the direct costs are, and then we also factor in that 1 month of training that we don't do, and then you put a dollar value. So where's that dollar value going to be? Well, it's still going to be higher than this. It's still going to be a dollar value. And then there's a philosophical decision that's got to be made, and how do you value that? Like, what do you value? If you look at it from the dollars and cents, then let's get rid of it, and let's just send people to Meriden. By the way, you only can get X amount of positions per class. We train everybody all at once. But we can do that, and we'll save money. You won't see it in the budget necessarily because you don't see a line item. But if you ask me, everything has value, right? What did Joe Biden once say? Don't tell me what you value, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value. So that's how I see it. I feel very strongly about it, but I'm also, I understand my role, and if I'm told that to cancel the academy because it costs too much money and I don't think it's worth it, then that's what I'll do. I just want to be heard first. And so thank you for your question.
And thank you for providing the details that you have.
Thank you.
I'm a graduate, as you know, of the Citizens
There you are.
Police Academy. I'm
So
very
many
proud
of
of
them.
that. that too is a very successful program, and the alumni certainly are an asset to the police department.
Yeah, they
aren't
are.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And those kind of things really pay dividends when people start to question, the role or the actions, and it's important that people really know what we stand for and what we're about, and I think it gives them better perspective, and I think that Citizens Academy, along with all the outreach that we do, it's a really important piece. Thank you.
Chief, as I'm looking over all these accounts, I don't mean to put you on the spot. In the event we wanted to add some more money to your account, which account do you think you need more money in?
Well,
What's your priority?
as strange as this may sound, I hadn't come here asking for more money today. I respect the process, and that's not my goal. My goal is to tell you the impact and tell you that, ask you to please have an understanding that there are shortfalls here that we've absorbed that I want to make sure everybody understands, when it comes to dispatch center, when it comes to some of these other things. And so the expectation, in my view, shouldn't be that, or the belief shouldn't be that you're over budget. And I don't think we can continue along this path of cutting every year. At some point, it's going to have to stop, right? It's going to have to at least be adjusted, because you can't keep reducing things without having impact on public safety. But if the overtime budget is the one area I'm concerned about, but we also know, because this has always been like this, I've had this for 14 years, that when we have surpluses in wage accounts, that we'll move money from those wage accounts. It's kind of the way we budget. So to ask for more money would mean that, then I'm just not asking for more money. But I will, if this continues past July, then let's just let the public know that we're cutting back on things. We're cutting back on training, resources, equipment, staff, and then that impacts public safety. I know that's probably a strange answer under the circumstances.
Like I said, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Because sometimes one thing or other, we have distributed a little money here, a little money there, and in the event the police department was going to be getting any of that, I just wanted to know which account your priorities are, that's all.
Then the thing I believe in so strongly is training. That has to do with overtime. So whether it be the training overtime or whether it be the basic overtime, I want to make sure that we continue to train. And I feel it's my public responsibility to push back on any reduction in training. I think it's to support our people. I think it's important as well. But we'll make do. The one thing, and let me just make sure I'm also clear, we've never done anything since I've been chief that's ever impacted the safety of anyone. And so I'm confident that if it got to that point and there's going to be money, that we're going to have the funding to do that.
Thank you, Chief. Alderman Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, through you to the chiefs. Thank you very much. I'll just take a second to reiterate what some of my colleagues have said. I think I speak for everybody in how appreciative we are in the city of Milford of your department and what you do for us, and especially in light of the news that happens with the very hard job that the individuals have. With that in mind, you were very helpful, that explanation of the police academy. I was sitting here thinking that it should probably be a requirement for the alders that we attend, and I'd like to take advantage of that training, and the emphasis on training is very much appreciated. In light of that same piece, when our chairperson asked you what you would reinstate as a priority, is it still current that the issue of the cameras mounted on the cars, that you've staggered those purchases in a way that are behind? You have the funds for the body cameras, and that was first. But if I remember last year, you mentioned that you would stagger in the plan for the mounted ones as well, and that was in accord with current law enforcement community policing. Is that still the plan, and is this deficient in that regard, and would that be a priority? So I hope that's not
Thank
too
you for your
many
question,
questions.
and you have a very good memory. That is an important component, and we're remiss not to have those, but we have funding to be able to, I don't need budget money to do that. We have money in that private duty account that we're going to use to pay for that. So we have money that we have set aside, even though it hasn't been encumbered, so we can pay for that. Right now, we looked at a couple models, and we're looking at a particular product that causes the body cameras to go on, and so it all communicates. And that product was deficient. We tested it for the last couple of years. It just hasn't. It's not where we want it to be. We won't wait much longer if they don't get the product. If the product isn't developed to where we want it, then we'll just go with someone else. But I believe that whole body camera, people are forgetting all the time, and I'm just worried. I have been worried. It's kind of bear fruit that now when you make a mistake and forget, that can have catastrophic consequences, and the optics are poor. So we think it's important that everything kind of works together. But we do have funding for that.
I hope I didn't misspeak. You spoke to the body cameras, but also the mounted for the cars.
I'm sorry, that's what I was referring to. So the equipment that we want to put in the cars, that once those lights go on, there's triggers, so everything works. So if an officer walks within 30 feet of that car, everybody's cameras go on, they all sync, they all fall into the same category. So that's kind of what we're trying to get done. So, yeah, yes, that's correct. But we have the funding for that. It is. It's an account that we have. It was set up many years ago, and it helps provide for training and equipment for the officers that work these private duty accounts. So knowing that, they spend a lot of time working private duty, that those vendors should have to pay for some equipment and radios and some training, pay their fair share so the public doesn't. So those funds we have set aside for that. So it wouldn't impact anything here. Thank you.
Any more questions for the police chief? Alderman Tranquilli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening, chiefs.
Good evening.
I too would also like to thank you for everything you do for the community. I guess my first question is, I have two of them. Do we purchase or lease the police vehicles, and does it affect how often we replace them based on purchase or lease?
Sure. We purchase everything. The only thing that we're renting are cars that we use in a soft capacity, so we don't want people to see what the cars are. So I guess, for the lack of a better term, undercover. For instance, when we were doing all of those surveillances for people breaking into the neighborhoods, we needed nondescript cars, so we would rent. But to your question, all of our police cars are purchased. The cars we purchase for admin or detectives last a lot longer. They can last a very long time. The cars on the road that are police cars, they don't last very long. So we go 1 year on the first line, second line, and then we trade them in while they still have value. So we do purchase all those cars.
And how many officers contractually are supposed to be on per shift? Are we meeting that number per shift? And if not, what can be done to correct the problem?
So contractually, we're not. But let me qualify that. We have an adequate number of police officers in the field. And so maybe that sounds like a contradiction, but it's really not. The more police officers you have, the safer you are, the lower response times, the safer the officers are because their backup is closer, the greater the investigations. There's a lot of positives, but when you look at, in this business, we play the probabilities, not the possibilities. So we have, based upon certain days of the week, certain times of the year, and certain events, know what those numbers are. And we watch those numbers all the time. And it's very different in the winter than it is in the summer. And so the problem with this formula that I gave you is it doesn't distinguish based upon time of day or the season. And that's a flaw, but it is a contract. So while we don't adhere to the numbers, and that's more of a financial decision, if we think that we are short-staffed, we will order people over. People very often get ordered over. They can't go home. We will pull people and say, you're not going to training today. We will pull people from all different places and put them in the field. So the field, the more you have, the better it is, but we meet an adequate standard. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alderman Gaynor.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
evening.
As a most recent graduate of the Academy, I couldn't go without saying how impressed I am. I've always been impressed with the Milford Police Department, and my fairly limited experience over the years has always been a positive one. However, as a result of the Academy and the knowledge, I was extremely impressed with the depth of skill, knowledge, what we provide to the citizens, what you provide to the citizens of Milford, and the professionalism. It was consistent. There's obviously I feel that the department has very clear direction and guidance. I credit to you and your team. And I just can't say enough. I think if you haven't done the Academy, you should do it. And Milford is lucky to have the caliber of force that we have here. So thank you.
Thank you. I will pass all this on to our people. They'll very much appreciate your support. Thank you.
Alderman Fortunati.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to express my gratitude to this past year and all my dealings with you, Chief Mello, and your staff. Every question I had, every concern I had, response has always been superb. I've been educated, informed, you've helped me out, so thank you very much. I have a quick question on line 534150, professional services. I see, and if I'm reading this correctly, you've requested $53,000, and it looks like in the past, what's been expensed is in the $20,000 range. So, and if you answered this, I'm sorry if I missed it, but what is professional services and why the additional amount requested?
Sure. So that's the computer services. So we have a very sophisticated IT. In fact, most people will tell you that I haven't talked to Adam about this, but I've been told by other professionals that our PD MIS is more sophisticated than their entire city. And that doesn't surprise you when you look at, if you've been in that room and you look at what's there. So we have to hire, we have police officers, trained police officers working in there there's a learning curve there. So we have to hire consultants to come in and do some of that work. And the reason for the uptick in that was that we were going to look to do some upgrades to the MIS operation, and we didn't because of the new hire who is expertise and kind of, I really see where he wants to go, and it's exactly where we wanted to go. Something about hearing noise behind my back, I'm sorry. No matter how long, I can't break myself of that. And so, because we have, hopefully, that we have this service that we won't need to hire these consultants, and I think that was the whole idea behind it. So it was, I'm sorry, did I answer your question? Did you?
So it was requested because you thought you needed consultants to come in to upgrade your MIS, but you have it in-house?
Sure, we use consultants to do all that money, that 20-something thousand are consultant fees. And we were going to do some upgrading. And so we asked for the additional money based upon a quote that we got from the consultant. And they were talking about virtualizing our servers and things. We have a lot of deficiencies in the MIS room. There's servers that need to be replaced. We really should start moving to the next level. So after I had requested that in my budget meeting with the mayor, we talked about Adam now being on board and his vision, and so let's wait and see what he's going to do. And so that's what we're doing now.
Okay.
And I believe that that money's been appropriated to do all that in a bond. You would know more than I, but speaking to Adam, I think we're going that direction. I think we're So that, we were fine with that. We didn't see a need for that any longer.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Anderson, did I see your hand up again? Alderman Smith? You're on.
Come on. Here I go. Good evening, Chiefs. I too want to reiterate my appreciation for your fine leadership of a fine police department. We're lucky to have great men and women of the Milford Police Department and all that you do. And thank you too, Chief Mello, for your always thorough and detailed presentation. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much for getting back to us. I think most of my colleagues have said that. If I call, you call me back, and all of the other members of the department, Sergeant Craniac, if I have a question, traffic thing, they're always very responsive, and I'm sure everyone here shares that same experience. Just one quick thing. You were talking about the vehicles, and I sometimes need to be reminded or maybe informed. Police cruisers, you talked about that a few times here, and you had requested $285,000. The Finance Board recommended, and the Mayor recommended $65,000 less. I'm assuming that's the cost of one vehicle. And then also the asterisk that follows it in our budget book here tells us that the account may be supplemented by Fund 76, the Police Special Revenue Account. I don't know if maybe you could touch on that, or maybe Mr. Erdici, our Finance Director, could touch on Fund 76 and how that works.
Sure. So that was the account that I had referenced just a minute ago. That's that private duty car account. And so that's where we supplement. That's where we find the money to buy the additional cars. We also take, because there's a lot that you don't see, there's a lot that's not in this budget that we don't put in here. It's because we know we have other funds that we can utilize. The changeover on the equipment on these cars is so expensive, and the changeovers are so expensive. So you'll see a little bit, but most of it, the vast majority, comes out of that account, including the purchase of cars. The problem with that, and we've talked about this before, we can only do that once in a while, because once you do it, the money's gone. And you got to take a couple years to build that money back up again. So we got to manage that long term. I mean, we don't want to just drain those accounts and then leave next year. You know, we've got a plan, so we've got to make sure we can take a little bit out of that account at a time to supplement this. But to use all that money, I think would be a mistake. But that's the account that I referenced.
Thank you. But where does the special account Fund 76 appear, Peter, in the city budget?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Alderman Smith, it's not part of the general fund budget, but it does appear in the comprehensive annual financial report that you receive, the CAFR. The Special Revenue Fund financial statements are found there each year.
Any more questions for the police chief? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, good evening, Chief Mello, Chief Ron. I hope you know I have the utmost respect for both of you, your leadership, the department. And tonight, I always enjoy listening to you because you have so much knowledge, Chief Mello, and experience in the department and training. And I think probably, I could be wrong, Milford probably maybe has the best department throughout the state. And I would think that that's, you know, a credit to you and Chief Ron, your leadership, you know, investing in the future. And I know that you've mentioned before that your approach to all of this is you don't intend to be a placeholder. You've moved the department forward. You want to continue in that regard, and I respect that. And I think that's what we expect from our leaders, you know, whether it be police, fire, or directors, heads of departments. I think that Milford is, you know, there's high expectations, and you've met these expectations. And I can hear your frustration, and you know, you're very humble and saying that, hey, you've been doing it for 14 years, you can continue to do it. I respect that. But, you know, maybe it's time where we have to start seeing some give and take. And it's not, you just can't keep giving. And my question is, we talked about, cars, we talked about training, we've talked about overtime, and you made all your points, Chief. I mean, I'm listening loud and clear, and, they all have value. Have you ever come back in 14 years and asked for more money?
No.
So my question is, if this continues past July, to your point, this may be the new norm, where you may have to come back and ask for more money. Is that accurate?
Is it going to occur past July? I don't know. I would certainly hope not, and there's an impact, and the impact, I think, is significant. It's my understanding that it isn't. This is an emergency budget shutdown for the remainder of the fiscal. So we had a 12-month budget where we really only got 9 months out of it. But that's my understanding, and I guess if there's something else that we're going to, I mean, certainly it can't continue past that, because it just wouldn't be, what word can I use? That'd be problematic. That would be concerning.
Okay, and I just wanted to hear that, so I know, and the body of this board knows, what we're looking at, worst case scenario. So with that being said, why wouldn't you, putting this emergency spending to the side, why wouldn't you come back and ask for more money? Why do you continue to operate in the fashion that you're accustomed to operating in?
Sure. So I'm not the elected official. I'm not the people's representative. People elect representatives, hopefully do their homework and look for ideas and vision and leadership. And so I believe that when our elected officials hand us a budget, my job is to speak out on matters of public concern. One of the things the police chief has that no one else has is I have a statute that allows me to do that. I can't be fired because I said something someone doesn't like. And so that's where my job ends, to speak out on matters of public concern. And then to say, okay, here's my charge, here's my money, here's the expectation from the public officials in the community, and move forward. So to me, to ask for more, and if I had to, because it was a true emergency, then I would. But it's not an emergency. And so to do that would be probably a pretty poor example to my people. Because, to be a good, I think to be a good leader, you've got to be a good subordinate first. And, so yeah, I'm not the elected representative of the people, so that's why.
Okay. Thank you, Chief, and thanks again for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions for the police chief? Seeing none, thank you, Chief Mello,
Thank
Chief
you.
Ron, for answering all the questions we had, and
Thank
for
you. Good night.
for your presentation. We really appreciate it. Next department on our agenda is the Boys and Girls Club, page 92. Good evening, Megan.
Good evening.
You could start at any time.
Thank you. First of all, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate coming and talking about the Boys and Girls Club, and I really do appreciate everything that you and the city does for us and making sure that we're here for the kids in our community. So I am handing out a little presentation. I changed it up from the different formats so you guys have something new to look at. And I just want to quickly go through it with you guys. Over the past year, we've had a couple of big accomplishments, and we're really excited about. We do try each year to move forward and grow and expand in what we're doing. So our biggest accomplishment would be that we have signed a contract to potentially buy a new building. Still in the very beginning stages. We're very hopeful. We don't know which way it's going to go, but we feel at this point it's the right decision and helping the club to grow. We've expanded to begin serving the Stratford community. They've seen all the success that we've had in Milford, and their state reps have reached out and asked what we could possibly do over there. It's small. It's 8 kids right now, but hopefully we can get the model in that community as well. We're continuing to see successful events and growth in our funding opportunities, which is allowing us to, in the long run, serve more kids. Everything we do is how can we serve more kids? How can we serve kids in a more impactful way? We're continuing to add to and support our endowment fund. It's small now, but we do know that it's important to fund it each year. So one year we do have a strong endowment that will keep the club sustainable for many years to come. We've developed a great partnership with Liz DeLuca, and we received the largest grant that we've ever received to date from them, so that was a wonderful surprise this year. And we've completed an ALP training, which is an advanced leadership training through Boys and Girls Club of America, which is allowing us to become stronger leaders and to better run the club and better serve the kids in our community. So that was a big program that we went through. So as you see, each year our numbers are growing. This year we're pretty much flat where we were last year. First year number of, there's only so many seats on a bus and there's only so many bodies that we can put in the current classrooms that we have. So we're looking for ways to expand. We recently got 3 new classrooms that we'll be able to use by summer camp, which is going to allow us to serve an additional 30 kids this summer. So we're really excited about that. We have about 10 spots left in our summer camp with the additional 30 spots, and there is a continual flow of membership registrations coming in, so we will definitely have a waiting list, and I'm assuming by next week. So if you guys want your kids in, make sure you sign them up very soon. Just as some of our demographics and statistics, it just shows that we're serving all types of kids in Milford. Anyone that lives in Milford is at the Boys and Girls Club. And we serve kids from all different financial backgrounds. There's 2 graphs here. One is the actual number of kids that we are serving in the different economic levels, and then one is the percentage of our members. So just breaks it down in 2 different ways. I get some questions on that. We're able to do this through all of our programs, and we are currently offering 91 different enrichment programs. So we do charge $200 a year for our members to attend our program, and they have access to all of our programming, enrichment programs, in addition to our general after-school program. So they have access to Boy Scouts, they have access to Girl Scouts, they have access to an amazing running club that we just partnered with the Police Academy it's called Running with Recruits, and when they're done with their academy session, they volunteer their time and they run a mentoring program with our kids and teaching them to run and all the disciplines in running, and it's really a great program that we're really excited about. And all of these programs don't cost the kids any extra money, so that for the $200 they can take part in all of these different things that we're doing. The next page is just a list of all of the different programs. There's so many. I'd be here all day if we talked about them all. And the reason our club works is because of our staff. Our staff are some of the most amazing people. They care about kids. Parents have to work. It's a reality for all of us. And when these parents are at work, they should know that our staff treat their kids as if they're their own. They love them. They make sure they're getting their homework done. They teach them a life lesson when it's time to be taught. They discipline them when it's time to be disciplined. And we really do love these kids, and we're so lucky to be able to work with them. And the staff here come to work with smiling faces, and they leave with smiling faces. So we are very fortunate to have the amazing staff that we do. In addition to our staff, the club wouldn't work, and we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing if it wasn't for our partnerships with many people throughout the community. We partnered with Ace My Interview, where over the last summer they came and worked with our junior counselors on their interview skills, and they did videotapes of the kids and gave them feedback on how they can improve their skills. They helped us with resume writing. So I can go through, there's so many amazing, the Elks Club have given us a grant to run a teen 3-on-3 basketball tournament on Friday nights, engaging the kids and getting them off the street. There's so many. We'll be here all night if I go through all of our partnerships. But there's so many amazing people in the community that care about the kids. And as soon as I say, this is what we do, they say, how can we help? None of it would be able to be done without our board of directors. This is a group, we've grown our board to about 30 members. We're just under 30 right now, and this group is tireless in their efforts. They are emailing at 1 o'clock in the morning about things that we can do and ideas that they have and what we can do better and how we can do more, and what else can we do, and what next event can we run, and how else can we raise money. So currently our board's led by Dave Rodriguez. He's amazing. His guidance and leadership is very much respected by all of us. And in a few weeks, we'll be welcoming Isla Tokarts as our new board president, which we're also very excited about. But I'm just very lucky to have these very dedicated people at the Boys and Girls Club. The fun stuff, the money. So each year, our expenses are growing because we're serving more kids, and we're figuring out different ways that we can better serve them. So we've seen a continual growth in our income. For the first time, we've had a decrease in our income. It's very small, and it's just due to one large grant that we happened to get the year before. And we did have a pretty large growth between 16 and 17. So last year, we just didn't get that one large grant that we got. But I'm sure next year's will look great again. Our budget breakdown, one of the main things when I started 9 years ago, it was we were really dependent on one funding source, and how, if that funding source ever went away, what would happen to the Boys and Girls Club. So we really tried hard to diversify our income, and we've been able to do that, and I'm really proud of how we've been able to do that. And special events is still a huge part of our club. In addition to the money we're able to raise through them, we are able to get out there and market our Boys and Girls Club and what we're doing. And even though we've been around 9 years, there still is some confusion in the community, so it's really important for us to be able to say this is what the Boys and Girls Club does and how we're different from other organizations in the community. This is just a little recap of some of our goals. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we are just continuing to expand the number of youth we serve. We're trying to figure out how we can serve more schools. We're always in talks, and why are you only have busing from 4 schools? Why aren't you serving all 8 of the elementary schools? So by September, we're hoping to be able to serve at least 6 of the 8 elementary schools. We know we can't go from 4 to 8. It would be hard and unsustainable for us, but we're hoping to, by September, being able to serve 6 of the elementary schools, which will be huge. And then we just want to continue to grow, and what else can we do to help the community? If there's a need, how can we fill it? If there's a need of our kids, how can we help fill those needs? And we're very, very lucky. So thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you for everything you do for us. Thank you for supporting us, being there since day one. We wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the city, so thank you for everything.
I just have one question, Megan.
Yeah.
You mentioned it cost $200 per student to be a member
Yes.
of the Boys and Girls. Does that include, I'm sure it doesn't, but transportation costs?
No, so for members to get transportation to the Boys and Girls Club, it's an additional $250 for the year. So for $450, they can come every single day after school. And we do offer scholarships for those who need.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. How you doing, Megan?
Great.
Just a couple of clarification questions. I note that you use HUD's low-mod income guidelines. Is that a requirement for the program?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
HUD's. You
Yes.
use HUD's figures. Is that a requirement for the program?
It's not a requirement for Boys and Girls Club, but we do have to capture the data for our CDBG grant. So since I have it, it's a great statistic that I can show.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to be clear on that. And the grant that you do receive from CDBG is used in what way?
We use it for part-time staffing. So we get $9,000, and that's used for part-time staffing.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And could you delineate the different responsibilities of the trustees versus the directors?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So a trustee is a friend of the Boys and Girls Club. They talk about us in the community. They know what we're doing. They understand our mission. They believe in our mission. They come to our events. They spread the word. Just really good friends of the Boys and Girls Club. Definitely.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Megan. Thank you so much for all you do and all the Boys and Girls Club mean to the city. I'm ashamed to, before I start, I'm ashamed to say that I know you've had several opportunities for members of this board to visit your facility, and it's in my district, and have never been there. So perhaps in the coming months, I'll get in touch with you and maybe get a chance to see firsthand what you do with the Boys and Girls Club, because every year it's a more impressive array of services that you offer. And that brings me to my question. I presume that the Boys and Girls Club of Milford operate within the auspices of a national organization of Boys and Girls Clubs. When you say one of the accomplishments is to expand service to include the Stratford community, is this something that's kind of mandated by the national organization? Or because whenever, and I say the same thing about the senior center, I'm always wondering at what point do you say this is how large an operation we want to have here? Because the senior center began in the basement at St. Mary's Church, and now it's a huge operation with probably one of the premier senior centers in the state. Boys and Girls Club has expanded tremendously since you started not that long ago. How is it decided that you would bring people in or begin to serve the Stratford community? Is there not a Boys and Girls Club in Stratford?
So no, there currently is not a Boys and Girls Club in Stratford. Their state rep reached out to us. They saw when we were up in Hartford talking about all the great things they're doing, and they said, why don't we have a Boys and Girls Club? So we just reached out. We're doing minor things at this point. So each Boys and Girls Club, we do pay membership dues to Boys and Girls Club of America, but we're each our own separate entity. So they give us models and ideas, but they don't tell us exactly how to run or what to do. They don't help us with our budget. I mean, we get pass-through grants, which is wonderful, but we're each our own separate organization. Clubs typically start with support of another club. So how do we get the ball running in Stratford? Is it something that will run forever? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. It just depends on what the future holds and how it all rolls out. Is that a good answer?
The people from Stratford, obviously transportation is a major consideration here. As I said, you're over in the west shore of Milford, which is my area, my district, in walking distance. But I would assume most of the people have to find ways, and boys and girls are not driving cars, they're getting shuttled in by their parents, or is there any arrangement with school transportation as far as bringing people?
In Stratford?
No, in Milford.
In Milford. Yeah, so we currently do have we have our own contract with Durham School Services. So we have 4 buses, one from Pumpkin Delight, one from JFK, one from Mathewson, and one from Meadowside. We are currently looking at how we can expand to possibly serve Orange Ave and Calf Pen. We don't have anything solidified yet. And then the kids from West Shore Middle School and Jonathan Law High School typically walk to the Boys and Girls Club. So at 3:30, you could see a whole bunch of kids walking down Naugatuck Ave. They're coming to see us.
Okay, I never knew that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and about the tour, come anytime you want. We're there every single day till 6:30. Just pop in.
Okay. One last thing, if I can. You mentioned what the membership fee was, $200, I think you said $200. What if you have a kid that just can't afford that? How is that handled?
So we do have scholarship applications. We currently scholarship 26% of the kids that come to the Boys and Girls Club. We also get referrals from guidance counselors from the school. We work very closely with the schools and the teachers, and anytime anyone recommends someone, there's no questions asked.
Thank you so much.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Megan. Thank you for all you do, and all those people on your board and trustees, and it's a really amazing organization. I always ask some of your highlights or some of your special events, just for the viewing public, some of your big events that you do all year that are amazing. Can you just share with us some of those?
Absolutely. We just wrapped up our gala. That was a week and a half ago. It was our largest event to date. We did very well, so we're really excited about that. We went on a new venture to try out Margarita Miles at the Connecticut Post Mall this past Cinco de Mayo. We didn't have the numbers that we would have liked, but it was a fun event, so we're learning how we can expand and improve that moving forward. And we have the Montano Family Golf Tournament coming up on June 24th. So foursomes go quickly, so if you want to golf, sign up. We have our Walnut Beach Ice Cream Run on August 4th. Then we have Pumpkins Eve and Pumpkins on the Pier, which is October 4th and October 5th. And you can learn more about these events at our Boys and Girls Club of Milford.com website.
Just a couple other follow-ups. You talked about in the past of starting a Woodmont location. Is that in the works?
Still waiting for a building. As soon as I get one, I promise I will start a Boys and Girls Club.
So you just need a building?
A building.
All right. Could find you one of those.
All right.
And one last question. So the Stratford Boys and Girls Club, will they be requiring resources from Milford, or they have their own funding what they're working on?
So it's very experimental at this point. We have 8 kids. We're working with their alternative education high school, and we're offering one program for 1 hour a week for 8 weeks. We're literally dipping our toe in the water right now. So I don't have that answer quite yet, but I'm assuming if we were to expand fully into Stratford and serve the community the way we serve Milford, there would be separate funding.
And congratulations on all the accomplishments for 2018-19. Those are some impressive stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. I took the tour last year, and I was blown away. It's such an impressive facility and program, and the energy. It was just really I left feeling really good, and that Milford's really lucky to have you here. I'm looking over the program list, and there's a couple things that jump out on me that I think are just fabulous. Under education and career, you talked about acing my interview. The things that are of particular interest to me, you have, I guess, a program on domestic violence, on bullying. Are there any other programs that you have or planning to do that focus on mental health for kids?
Definitely. So the domestic violence program is one that I'm really proud of. It was a grant that we got through the state, and we taught 10 boys safe dating habits, and those 10 boys were then in turn supposed to find 10 boys. So it was 10 by 10 program, and it was a basketball program, and they really rolled it out, and it was a great program to see, especially for our community. So it was awesome. It just depends as things roll out and what we have access to. We do work with Bridges, and they're wonderful, and we do talk about different ways that we might be able to work together. Nothing I'm ready to share quite yet, but there are a couple things that we're exploring and how we could better serve the kids.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Alderman Gaynor.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
No question, just a comment. I am an extremely proud trustee for the Boys and Girls Club and have been for a couple of years. And what drew me to it was your infectious energy as well as that of your staffs. And that has never wavered. That has never changed. You only get more excited and more involved. And I have to say one highlight that I haven't stopped thinking about since the gala was the woman who bakes birthday cakes for every child in that club, many of whom would never have gotten a birthday cake. These are Milford residents, not the Stratford kids. Milford residents who would never have children who would never have gotten birthday cakes had it not been for her. It's just amazing. It is amazing how dedicated volunteers are, and they give of themselves, not just of their checkbooks. So it's a huge credit.
Thank you. It is a great program.
Any more questions for the Boys and Girls Club? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening, Megan. Congratulations on a great, successful program. I just have a question in regards to this pilot program in Stratford. If this does begin to build and Stratford kids are coming into Milford, does that make Stratford, are they obligated to issue you a grant as well, or how does that funding work?
It's a good question. They're not obligated to. I'm assuming if they would like us to run the program, it would follow. But there's no obligation, I will say. But we can't run the program without money, so it's not something we're going to jump into without having funding secured before we do so.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for the Boys and Girls Club? Seeing none, thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the great work you do for the kids. Do a great job.
Thank you.
The next department on our agenda is Literacy Volunteers of Southern Connecticut, page 92.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Tammy Jackson, I'm the Executive Director for Literacy Volunteers of Southern Connecticut. And this year we're celebrating our 25th anniversary. So it's a big year for us, and we're having a celebration, an international celebration this summer in downtown Milford, so I'm sending some cards around. So there's 46 different languages that are spoken just in Milford. People don't realize how diverse our community is becoming. Last year we tutored 121 students. We had 80 tutors. We offer 2 tutor training classes every year, 2 in Milford, 2 in Stratford. And then we tutor one-on-one. We have small group classes. There's 6 small classes in Milford. So we have a women's class, conversation, intermediate, advanced. We just started a lunch and learn that was sponsored by Subway, so that's been successful, and it's a different tutor each week, so there's different themes, so that's been widely popular. And last year our tutors and all of our volunteers donated over 8,000 volunteer hours. So I'm the only paid staff member, so it just kind of puts into perspective what other people are doing to give back to make our program successful. We also support children in our community. We have a Books for Babies, Books for Toddlers, Books for Birthdays, and a preschool reading program. So we donate books to all of those different programs, and we read to kids weekly and try to encourage family literacy and try to build kids' home libraries. So we distribute books to them as well. What else? We also do some writing prompts. So for example, some immigrants may not ever have had the opportunity to write. So we do writing exercises every year, and then we have our multicultural celebration that we celebrate in April. We just had that a couple weeks ago, which is a success. It's a time that our students and our tutors can come together as well as other volunteers, and we celebrate their accomplishments. Some will get their citizenship, some will get a driver's license. We do survey them, and out of the people that had responded back, 83% had increased conversation skills. So it's really, trying to improve their quality of life so that they can integrate and be a part of our community and fit in a little bit better. Our tutors are all volunteers, and they go through a 5-week tutor training class. Each week it's 2 hours. We provide them with materials, and some of the grant money goes towards Challenger series. So this is an example of one of the books that we use in our curriculum. It correlates to the CASAS testing, which is something that most educators can afford. We can't, so we use this instead. It's a level of 1 to 9 books, and each book obviously gets more difficult. So it's got vocabulary words and some short writing stories, and then they obviously get longer and longer. So as they progress through the series, we can see how they evolve and how they're learning other better words and putting things together. What else? Any questions on what I've said so far? So our tutors are all volunteers, so they, we also tell them too when they end up meeting with a student that they may end up becoming a little bit more of like a social worker. So, this may be the only American speaker that they deal with or that they might trust. So, they have this and establish this relationship with their tutor, And, it may be the only opportunity that they get to ask about, like, well, how do I, do this or that with my child in school, or my kid is having a hard time, like, I don't know how to navigate the system. I need to get my driver's license, or I have to get my citizenship. I mean, the website is so long, all those English words, like, how do I navigate all of that? So they really do become a really integrated part of them, of the students' lives, but also can be the family. Like, we're just right in the middle of Ramadan, so a lot of our student families are inviting our tutors over for dinner, which to Americans, like, they're not eating until 8 o'clock at night. So some of them are like, oh my gosh, we're not going until 7:30 at night, but they have to wait until dusk. So they're learning about a certain kind of culture, and they're also incorporating and being grateful and giving back to the tutors. So it's nice. Any questions?
Any questions for the Literacy Center? Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Tammy. For as long as I can remember, you have been the face of literacy volunteers. You say this is your 25th year?
It's our 25th year, yeah.
You didn't start it. Were you there 25 years?
So I
think
was
you
a
were
volunteer first.
Right.
I was a volunteer when Devin was born, and then and I worked there for almost 10 years. So and then I was a volunteer 10 years before that. So yeah, just about 5 years into
Well,
it.
thank you so much. It's a wonderful organization. It does wonderful work. And one thing never occurred to me, you mentioned what percentage of the people that go to literacy volunteers that receive literacy tutoring are second language as opposed to basic adult education? I always thought of it in terms of the problem of illiteracy in the United States, but really, probably more often than not, it is people that have English as a second language, and maybe they're conversant in it, but not necessarily literate and able to read and absorb the material. Can you just give me a breakdown on how
The
that
numbers
works?
change all the time. People are constantly coming and going, but for the most part, it's about 90% are immigrants.
All right, so they're
So we
literate
deal
in
with-
another language, they're just learning English.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much, Tammy. Thanks for all you do.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any more questions pertaining to the Literacy Center? Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, sir, through you. Does the Milford Public Schools Adult Ed offer similar programs?
So every state, every city is mandated by the state to provide ESL services. The problem with that is that they have group classes. There are certain time frames. So let's take, for example, they may meet like Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 12. I mean, many immigrants' lives don't fit into Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 12. Their circumstances are they're just a little crazy. I mean, some of them are escaping just horrific situations. Some are coming because they want a better life. Some have families. They're very family-centered, so, we don't have a lot of classes at night because the majority of our students are women. They need to be home with their husbands and their families. It's just a culture thing. They cannot be out at night, so we don't do that. We offer more classes during the day, which can also be tricky because a lot of our volunteers work, so, it's a constant juggle. So I manage about 200 people a year, and it's just constantly, trying to manipulate and manage people so that they can get what they need. But yes, so Milford does provide that service. However, they just finished their classes maybe several weeks back. They won't start again until September. We go year-round. We never stop.
That's really what I wanted to get to, is it seems like the flexibility of your program fits a different demographic. Is that right?
And our niche is one-on-one. I mean, that's really what the majority of our students and tutors is a one-on-one experience. To throw somebody, escaping Syria into a classroom of 10 people, and some of them might be men, that's an issue. So by having a one-on-one, or we have specific women's classes for those reasons.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you, to Tammy. Thank you for all your work you do on that terrific organization. I've been to many events, and they're really, really nice. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on your international festival, where it's at? It's about a month from now, and what what kind of activities you're going to have there?
Yeah, thanks. So it's new, and it's something that we wanted to do for our 25th anniversary. We didn't want to have like a gala and a dinner and all of that, and we really wanted to celebrate what it is that we actually do, which is celebrating diversity and culture in our community. So we're having cultural entertainment and food vendors from ethnic, ethnic food trucks and vendors. So it's a fundraiser, so it's $5 to get in, and we'll have performances all day long, 11 to 4. Every half hour it'll switch, so we'll have like a new performance and stuff like that. So on the website we're adding all the information on there, so if you wanted to see what is already committed to, we've still got some things in the works, but I'm not posting it until I actually have commitment. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Anyone else wants to speak to the Literacy Center? I see none.
One other good story is one of our students, she was in our advanced class, and she's from Brazil, and so now she's actually volunteering and working in the office. So, that's a really exciting success story for us and for her and for people that are just trying to find their way when they come to the United States. It's really been great, working with her, and I like having her. Do you mind if I just close with one of our student essays, so you get a little, if I can see? My name is Arpita. I came to the U.S. in July 2017. I grew up in India. In India, students go to 12 standard years of school and 1 year of college. I studied in commerce. I got married at the age of 21. My husband owned his own business. I was a housewife and had 4 children. My children attended English medium school, where classes are taught in English. My husband died suddenly from a severe heart attack in 2012. After 5 years, I decided to remarry. I met my husband at the Marriage Bureau. He had a job in the United States, so I decided to move to the U.S. to be with him. 3 of my children came to the U.S. with me. I was not able to speak proper English, so I went to the library. I saw on the counter at the library information about English classes. I signed up for the class and also for a tutor. After I learn English, I want to get a job and my driver's license. I need to learn driving first before I drive in the U.S. My volunteer teacher helps me, so I will be able to take the driver license test in English. She also helps me with my English. She even takes me out to speak with other people. There are many things she helps me with, like working a computer, how to write emails, how to surf online on different websites. She also helps me with word games to improve my English. She's a very nice and approachable person. She gave me a treat on Valentine's Day. We went out to have lunch. It was a very enjoyable and fun day. She's a great person and is really good at explaining and teaching. She's a very good teacher and has helped and has a helpful nature. Thanks to the Literacy Volunteer Program, I have a lot of help in various things. I'm grateful for everything that I have learned, and I want to say thank you to my volunteer teacher for the time she gives me and helps me develop into someone that I've always wanted to be. The Literacy Volunteer Program helps many more than imagine and provide help to many others like me, and it affects how much better their lives get in America. So, thank you again for all the support that you've given to the center. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me tonight.
That was a fine tribute to what you do for your Literacy Center. Thank you for that.
Okay, all set? Thanks. All good?
Anybody have any more questions? You're all set. Thank you,
Okay,
Tammy.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you for your presentation. The next department on our agenda is the Animal Control, page 59.
Good evening. I'm Scott Ellingson, the head animal control officer. Not asking for anything more in the budget. It's the same as last year with the exception of $200 added to the computer account, and that's just to include a monitor.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody have any questions for the Animal Control? Alderman Anderson.
Thank you. Scott, good evening. I realize that you deal exclusively with domestic animals and only certain domestic animals, but I wondered what your protocol is as a department with respect to having a resident of Milford or Orange call up and say, I've got this skunk or possum or raccoon that I'm dealing with. How do you recommend that I get rid of this pest that's bothering my family? What is your protocol?
Typically, if it's something like a skunk that's gotten into your house, you would need a nuisance wildlife remover. But personally, if it's like a skunk's gonna drown in your pool, I've gone and fished them out. We sometimes will go for injured wildlife if we can get a rehabber. It's pretty much as long as it's outside or a public danger or something like that, then we do respond. In the past,
Is that understood by your staff?
yes. Yeah, typically, if somebody calls up, there's a raccoon or something and it's drowning in my pool, I ask them, is it still alive? And I will go fish it out myself. So,
Thank you for your response.
you're welcome.
Any more questions? Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Scott. I have a recent question. Someone actually called me a few days ago. Their neighbor has a very aggressive large dog that's fenced in, but apparently the fence is going. It's maybe being knocked down by the dog. So they feel really threatened. They can't even go in their backyard because this dog is like almost coming over the fence. And not only them, but the people on the other side feel the same way. So they don't even feel comfortable going out to their backyard. Is there anything can be done? Nothing's, the dog hasn't done anything yet to them because it hasn't got through the fence yet, but it's just a matter of time. Can anything be done?
Well, they can call the office. We can go try and make contact with the owner of the dog and make him aware of the problem. But yeah, we are kind of limited to something's got to happen. But we can definitely look into contacting the owner. Maybe the owner is not even aware the fences are, going to go. And we can always check for license, rabies, everything on the dog. So all they'd need to do is call us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions pertaining to animal control? Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening. My question is, the agreement that we have in place with the town of Orange, I just would like you to confirm, are you still able to fuel up there? Are
Yes.
they allowing that?
Yes.
Okay. There hasn't been any issues?
Nope, none.
Okay. And just to follow up through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mayor Blake. Mayor Blake, the revenue side, the money that we receive from the town of Orange for the services that we provide through animal control, can you tell us or share with us the last installment? Was that used towards the installation of the dog park?
Yes, we receive $75,000 a year from Orange. The dog park was funded through that account. So it was, again, essentially a non-Milford taxpayer expenditure. It was the money that we receive, it was through the money that we received from Orange that helped pay for that dog park, or pay for that dog park.
Just to follow up through you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Blake, typically what else is that money used for other than this past cycle?
I can let Scott give some more details, but it's been used in the past for overtime. It's been used in the past for expenditures for capital products. It's used for anything really related to domestic animals within Milford.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. Just to clarify, it's being used right now to purchase a new animal control vehicle.
Okay, so you're upgrading.
Yeah, I had a timing belt go out on my oldest one, so we're upgrading. So,
okay, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I like animal control a lot. I'm down there quite often. But actually, what I wanted to see if you could bring up is what is needed. If the community wanted to bring something down to the animal shelter, what can they bring?
We do run a food bank, which also is run through just donations by the public, and people that are down on their luck can come. So animal food, animal treats, particularly dog and cat. Cat seems to always be the lowest. More people come for that. Old beds, crates, cages, anything like that. Towels, blankets, anything like that's always appreciated. And always cleaning supplies.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Scott. You guys have vehicles, you have to get around. How come there's, under capital outlays, there's vehicles and equipment zero? How do you,
Right
pay
now-
for your transportation to pick up the stray dogs? And
Right now, we're using the orange money to purchase a new vehicle. That comes out of the $75,000 that they give us a year. So right now I have, let's see, 2 years ago it was also used to purchase another vehicle. So.
How many vehicles does the animal control have? 2, right?
Right now we have 3. One is really old and it's kind of like the ice cream truck style. And at one point the mounts on the back that hold up the fiberglass body were giving way and it was starting to rub on the tire. So they welded it up and we're kind of using that as a spare for when we have to take anything in to get any service done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions relating to the animal shelter? Animal control, any more questions? I guess not. Thank you, Scott, for your presentation and all the work that you do for the city of Milford.
Thank you.
The next department on our agenda is the Milford Arts Council, page 87.
Good evening, everybody. I want to start out by thanking the City of Milford for supporting the Arts Council for nearly 50 years. In 2021, this organization will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. So we're really exciting. We're actually gearing up some plans, some exciting plans, and hopefully we'll have something great to present to you. The information that I have here for you is our brochure this year, which does showcase the work that we did last summer in revamping our brand. We also revamped our website, and the report that you have is the marketing report, which basically explains our uptick in business and success due to the $3,000 extra that we received from the City of Milford last year. That money was spent directly into paying expanded hours for a new marketing director. And her work, Lori Lewis is her name, has been just absolutely fabulous. We have increased capacity from an average of 50% when she started to an average of 95% for our musical events. Our exhibit attendance has increased as well, particularly the receptions and the activity at the Firehouse Gallery have practically doubled. In addition to the added marketing, the second page, you will see the picture of the mural that was painted on the side of the building. After the Good to Great grant that we finished a couple of years ago, in renovations inside and out to the Milford Arts Council's home, the MAC, in the downtown eastbound train station. We looked to seek funding to help update and renovate the Firehouse Gallery down in Walnut Beach. We did go for a grant for that and were denied from the Community Foundation for the Greater New Haven County. The answer or response that they gave to the denial of that grant was because we've been doing so well that there were other organizations that they felt that they needed to put funding into. Nice problem to have. And a nice pat on the back, but it did mean that we had to scrounge around for the funding to make this project happen. We were able to go into some savings accounts from the Firehouse Gallery, and we were awarded a $3,500 grant or gift from the Devon Rotary, which paid for the mural work itself. Our eastbound theater productions attendance have increased over 60%. The fall production, called November, was 369 and 586, which is our highest ever for the winter production of These Shining Lives. Our website has reached all four corners of Connecticut with 22,000 visits in September of 2018, 15,000 visits from Connecticut, reaching from Thompson to Pawtucket to Torrington to Danbury to Ridgefield to Fairfield and New Haven counties. Our additional visits, which are all social media, are listed there by state. Our unique visitors, which means half the people coming to the site are new, are 9,600 people. We've had 71,000 page views, and we've had a big spike in January. We had a unique event then called the Bluegrass Bash, where we had two back-to-back events, a Saturday night concert, which was sold out with a higher ticket point than normal, with Deadgrass from New York State, followed by a mini festival on Sunday with 4 hours of music with 4 bands. And that had over 120 people in attendance. Our Instagram went from 0 to almost 1,300, and our Facebook followers jumped from 1,000, and we're now approaching 4,000 followers. So I think your $3,000 additional investment was well-founded, and we're really, really excited for where we're going. Just some other things to make note. We have been, as usual, reaching out into the community and partnering with other groups. These Shining Lives was the production in a winter eastbound. We partnered with the Milford Library. The play was actually the basis for a book on the New York Times bestseller list called The Radium Girls, which tells a true story of women in the turn of the century who were paid by the radium companies to hand paint the dials of watches for World War I soldiers, and they used radium dust. And one of the companies that was the basis of the book and the basis of the play was in Bridgeport. So we felt that bringing this story was really, really relevant, not only to our community, but the neighboring communities, and along with the Me Too movement and the fact that these women banded together and found a lawyer who believed in their cause was really, really amazing. The library held a book club, which I think had about 25 people. Those people were given a deep discount to opening weekend, and they had a talk back with the cast afterwards. So that was really, really great. We're looking forward to our next partnership with the library. Eastbound will be celebrating 25 years, and they will be producing a live production outside plein air of Our Town in August. So we're going to be working with the library on doing a reading of the play as well for the public. Many people grew up reading Our Town, and I think that that has kind of been passed aside. Not a lot of people are as familiar with that work as it used to be in generations past. That production, I think they had auditions last night and tonight or the night before. Sorry if I'm crackling. It will be, I believe, 3 separate casts, 3 directors, and will take place starting at the gazebo downtown, and then they will meander, shop, grab bites to eat, and an hour and a half later, they will meet at the Daughters of the Revolution for the cemetery scene, and then meander through downtown, and then they will wind up at Parsons with hopefully a party at Stonebridge. So we're looking forward to that. That is then going to be the start, the kickoff for the 2019-2020 season, which we are going to focus on community and our town. So our town will start that. We've got some exciting projects coming up in Firehouse. Karen, you'll be happy. I met with Faustin, and he's coming. So this is an amazing artist from Nigeria, and he does art using reclaimed garbage. And he uses it to speak to different communities and different societies and nations about something that was transformative in their growth as a nation. It's really, really interesting work, and he loves working with kids, so we're hoping to bring him into the Boys and Girls Club, into our schools, invite the schools to come see the exhibit, and then he can visit and do hands-on artwork with them as well. The Firehouse Gallery, I will say, the mural has been absolutely transformative to that neighborhood. If you haven't driven by and seen it, it's really, really beautiful. It took the 6 years that I've been at the Arts Council of listening to people and delving into that community. My kids grow up going to Simon Lake School. I live in the area. So I've really seen that area change and move, and that business district has worked so tirelessly to be successful and sustainable. They do so many amazing events down there, really pulling together as a community of business owners and have a great pride. So to be able to create something this beautiful to really showcase the neighborhood and to bring people there has been fantastic. The other three sides of the building, we took into account the fact that that building sits very tightly within the residents on those three sides, so we kept that very traditional in its paint, and it's painted to look like, to emulate the downtown brick and sandstone fire station with red trim around the windows and doors. A lot of people are coming and taking their family pictures in front of the mural, so it shows up on Facebook periodically on people's feeds. Tonight we're hosting our open mic night, which the winner of this series performs an opening act for the Oyster Festival at the secondary stage. So that's another kind of nice give back. Our Night Spot Nights, which we co-produce with Panchachino Productions, who uses our space for their productions, has been wildly successful. And this last piece that we did with them was a piano bar night. And the people who came absolutely adored it, and what we're hearing is that piano bars are closing in New York. So we actually had, I think, a dozen people come from Manhattan to sing with Michael at the MAC, which is really kind of cool. The last production of this season for Eastbound is Wait Until Dark. They're in rehearsals now. Panchachino Productions, just to mention them, as they are a partner, and we do love and adore them, are in production now for Waffle House 5. So if you haven't seen the production, it's this weekend and next weekend, and they've been getting rave reviews. So it's based on a true story. So it's a lot of fun. So I really just wanted to keep it to the request the same as last year, and to acknowledge that $3,000 went far, and to thank you all profusely. This municipality has long supported the arts in a lot of places other than MAC as well, and it's to be commended, and I mention it wherever I go throughout the state. So if there's any questions, I will take them.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Paige. I've been to many, many events over there, and it's a terrific place for events. I mean, the cafe style that you have going on, it's a terrific venue for Milford. I do have a question on membership. How many members do you have, and what's the annual cost?
All right, so the membership has been kind of stabilized at around between 350 and 400. We've been seeing a large uptick of new members joining or renewing at $100 versus the traditional $35 base price. However, we have seen a bit of a hiccup. We had an issue with a lag in renewals, and we've hired a new membership person, so we're going to be working through that. We have about 100 members who lapsed over the past year, and we have been diligently trying to delve into why that happened and how that could happen, with the fact that the uptick in attendance has been so great. So we're going to be playing a little bit of catch-up. And with all of these new people attending our events, it's how to coax them to become members. So that's going to be a huge goal of ours coming this far. And I will say as well, I brought my little bag tonight. There were a few of you there last night, but we partnered with the city, and as many of you know, not only sit on the chamber board, the executive board, but was appointed by the city to sit on Economic Development Commission. So it was a really great project. We talked about this for so long, so to be able to host the city of Milford's reveal of the new tourism website last night at the MAC was a lot of fun. We had a lot of great businesses there. I think we had probably between 80 and 100 people there in attendance. It was really crowded, but it was a lot of fun. That's why I'm a little hoarse from last night.
And just one quick follow-up, Mr. Chairman. So what's the benefits of joining for the year?
So the Milford Arts Council, since its inception in 1971, is categorized as a member organization, which means that members have voting rights, members have a say in what happens. And when the organization started, it was a true membership organization. Everybody who was there were artists or lovers of the arts, patrons and sponsors of the arts, and wanted to see great things happen. They met, had meetings, helped each other out, helped support each other. Frank can probably speak to some of that as well. Through the years, and once we opened up at the MAC in 1995, the feeling of a member organization has changed and shifted. Since we had a venue we had to run as a business, the membership view their membership as getting a perk. So it's discounts, pretty much. We would have to legally change ourselves as a non-member organization to change that status. We're still filed as one with the state of Connecticut. And we're just trying to really understand what those perks mean. Typically, it's discount tickets. We have a number of working artists who are the ones who enter our exhibits. They tend to not attend our events, so we feel it's probably about the right time that $35 is retained as an artist member only. So they would continue to get their discounts for submissions to art shows and be able to show in both the Firehouse Gallery and the MAC downtown. We then feel that since most of our memberships view perks and discounted tickets as what they get as a member, we feel that general membership should probably be pushed up to $50. Instead of discounts, what we would probably do is issue 2 free tickets for a $50 membership, 4 free tickets to a $100 membership, and so on and so forth for $250 and $500 memberships. We feel that that's easier to track. Right now it's the honor system. If you buy tickets and you hit that you're a member, you automatically get the discount. This way, if you give you coupons or certificates to free tickets, the onus is on the member to keep track of it, not us.
Thank you.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paige, every year when you come before us, I mention of all the granted agencies, certainly the Milford Arts Council is the most entertaining. At risk of offending any of the other granted agencies, they're just not, but you guys are. And I think, as I say every year, I think it's a testimony to your leadership in bringing together some of the volunteers, the fine volunteers that work for Milford Arts Council at all the events you do, the level of professionalism in all the years that MAC has existed, or it used to be Milford Fine Arts Council. Just the level of professionalism that you've lent to it, I think is a great testimony to your fine leadership of the Milford Arts Council. Because as I said last year, you're the first of all the directors that combine both the understanding of an artist with the organizational and leadership skills that you bring to this job, and we appreciate it. The city of Milford appreciates it, and thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
Any more questions regarding Milford Arts Council? I think you answered all the questions already, Paige.
Okie dokie.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all the good work you do for the
Thank you.
citizens of Milford. The next department on our agenda is the Milford Transit District, page 89. Good evening, Henry.
Good evening. We may not be very entertaining, but you should ride the bus sometime. You may get a laugh. I don't know. My name's Henry Jadek. I'm the Executive Director of Milford Transit District. You have to excuse me, I'm getting over bronchitis. We operate fixed route bus service in Milford, fixed route bus service from Milford to Norwalk and back as a reverse commute, mostly for entry-level employees up and down the Post Road from Milford to Norwalk. ADA van service, door-to-door, service for seniors, door-to-door, and operate the paid parking at the train station. And we're the landlord of the coffee shop that's on one side and the landlord of Page on the other side. She owes me, I think, $7 for she's behind in her $1 a year rent, but I'm sure she'll catch up sooner or later. Very appreciative of what the city contributes toward the district. We have, depending on the year, with our capital grants, over a $3 million budget operating and capital. All the operating money the city does not pay for, the state of Connecticut and mostly the federal government provides all the funds for capital, and the city's money goes towards our operating budget, which most of those funds come from the state of Connecticut. So needless to say, don't have to educate all of you of the situation with the state's budget and how we have to fight for every nickel we get, so that the city's contribution is very, very important. Not only in the fact that we probably wouldn't be able to operate without it, but that it shows the support of the city to the state and to other communities that the city of Milford does support public transportation and what we do. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Henry. Did you get a final budget from the state, and are you getting cut, or you don't know yet?
No, we don't know. We're basically hoping for a standstill at this time because of the flexibility of the Special Transportation Fund. And, I'm not for or against tolls or any of that stuff, but the support of that Special Transportation Fund really depends on how we'll make out in budget. We've been held level for the past few years, which makes it difficult because we have contractual obligations, as the city does, for our operators. They're the only ones that are unionized. We're at the end of a 3-year contract. We'll be negotiating for another 3-year contract. The last 3-year contract was minimal increases. We were able to do like 1.5%, and 1.5% over 3 years. We wouldn't be able to afford that, so those negotiations are going to be very interesting this coming year. So I really don't know. We're hoping for the best, but it's going to be interesting.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Alderman Fortunati.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Maybe a couple months ago, you and I had spoke via email about the status of getting Milford Transit buses onto Google Maps, because that would show where the buses are in real time. Is there any update as to whether or not you're able to do that?
We will in one form or another. I'm looking at a contractor for several things, and one of the things is a Google Maps part. So I'm kind of holding off on that because there's also a new security system, cameras for the buses, a new dispatch system for the van service, and a new application software for people that want to apply for the van services, all wrapped into one package. And part of that would be the Google Maps type thing. But one way or the other, that we will be on that system.
Okay. And the reason why it came up, I had posted an article that was written by my daughter about transit busing. And some of the comments were, one person in particular said she has an anxiety issue, and being able to see where the bus is would really alleviate that added stress to her public transit. So I really appreciate you looking into it. Thank you.
We'll definitely be there.
Thanks.
Any more questions pertaining to Milford Transit?
You got 3 more to go to catch up with the animal control law. Come on.
Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening. How are the buses currently being fueled?
We have our own fueling station at Research Drive.
Okay. Are you looking to get into natural gas as a fuel source?
We kind of follow what the state of Connecticut's into, to a certain extent, as far as we can. We usually purchase off their contracts for the buses. Our facility was built 20 years ago to accommodate natural gas. That was at the time. So we could accommodate natural gas. We kind of move at the end of those different innovations because we can't afford to lose with the state, and others can lose by getting into them. So once it's in, once it's established with the state, and then we can move in kind of a little bit afterwards. But the buses that we just purchased, 40-foot coaches that mainly are on that route from Milford to Norwalk, amazingly cost $438,000 a piece. I mean, it's 10 of my first house for one bus. So it's kind of mind-boggling. But so and when you get into those type of innovations, the electric buses and so on, now you're looking at buses that are $750,000. So we got to kind of work that into the program, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
2 more to go? No? Okay.
Any more questions pertaining to Milford Transit?
Just one other thing, you probably noticed downtown, those two architectural Civil War shelters that we have down there. They've been there for over 40 years. We've kind of just made them look better recently, but they'll be redone this summer and fall with new shelters. Somewhat hopefully the same type of style to fit downtown, so you wouldn't have to worry about them falling down.
Thank you, Henry. Any
Okay.
more questions for Milford Transit?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you for your presentation and answering our questions. The next department on our agenda is the Borough of Woodmont, page 88.
Good evening, everybody. Kit Schmeiser for the Borough Woodmont. I'm one of the Burgesses there. Ed Benessi, the warden, would like to have been here tonight, but he is away on a business trip that he couldn't avoid. Just very briefly, we're asking for the city to authorize sort of a rebate of the taxes that we pay to Milford in the amount of the same amount that we had requested last year and received last year, and frankly, the same amount that has been roughly the same amount that's been requested over the last 3 to 4 years. We've been trying to work closely with the mayor and keep our expenses in line. Just very briefly, I recognize most of you here. The Borough of Woodmont basically gets about $230,000 to do all of the, really the public's work for that section of Milford. As a rebate of basically taxes that we pay as Milford residents. It's worked well from my perspective, over the years that I've been in the borough and as a resident of Milford, because it allows sort of us to work closely with the mayor and you all, and allows us to sort of bring the perspective of what we can do to sort of help the city from that section of Milford. I think the borough is doing well. I think that your assistance has been greatly appreciated, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
I knew Alderman Gorman is going to have a question or two.
Gotta say something.
Being a resident and all. Alderman Gorman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through Kit. Thank you for all your work you do. Is there any major expenses that are coming up in the borough that would need additional assistance from the city?
Basically, the answer is there's always additional monies needed to some degree. We have a storm drain that is we have sort of tried to figure out how we're going to deal with the Belmont, what's called the Belmont Groin, but it's basically a storm drain for the main street that goes down Beach Avenue there, and that's been deteriorating. It was built 75 years ago. It's got holes in it. We've been trying to work with the city somewhat to try to come up with sort of a very cost-effective way of dealing with that, but that's a significant capital expenditure. The way that we operate, as you all are aware, is that there is a little bit of, we have the grant that you give us, and we basically are trying to address in somewhat Band-Aid fashion issues that come up every year. If, for example, we have a significant snow obligation, we could run into a situation where we're actually in the red, but we've been able to sort of manage it. So that we have been able this past year because of, frankly, the way that the weather turned out. We've been trying to set aside some money, very little, but we were trying to sort of build up some to address issues like those capital expenditures.
And just one follow-up, Mr. Chairman. And as far as sand replenishment for some of the Woodmont beaches, is that funded, how is that funded, and how often is that taken care of?
As a practical matter, we sort of do erosion control, not sand replenishment. It's come up in terms of the actual work on the beaches. It's been primarily as a response to the last two major hurricanes, working again closely with the mayor's office and with the Army Corps of Engineers. A lot of it has been funded through actually federal money that's come in to remake those beaches. We are sort of a third-party beneficiary of a contract that the city of Milford has with the Army Corps of Engineers. That is, I believe it's a 50-year contract. And if the city of Milford maintains certain levels of those beaches, we are actually able to get the benefit of federal money when a storm comes in and wipes out parts of the beaches. As a practical matter, if those conditions aren't met, then the Army Corps could walk away and we could just be left with the beaches completely destroyed. So we have been trying to work with the mayor in making sure that that those conditions are met, and that means keeping certain levels of sand so that the roadways are not impacted by any major storms in the future. I mean, they justify it not as a beautification project. It's really an effort to try to keep erosion from damaging the shoreline in a material way. So as to those issues, we had the borough itself, separate of Milford's money, has put money in the past to actually try to keep certain levels up. It would be helpful, and although this year we're not asking for it, but on a going forward basis to try to work and get some actual either money or sort of like-kind material to sort of maintain the beaches, which frankly is an arrangement that the city of Milford has with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you. Thank you for hanging out all night. It's a long night.
No worries. Anything else?
Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening. Can you just explain how you pay your taxes, the people that are residents of Woodmont, what percentage of your taxes are paid to the city, and then you pay dues to the borough? Is that correct?
The way that the borough of Woodmont works is that I'm a Milford resident like everyone else. I get my property tax bill and don't like to pay the property tax bill like everyone else. And so we pay that amount in. I would say that approximately, I haven't done the calculations recently, but in the past several years we were putting in something like $5 or $6 million in terms of money coming from Woodmont residents to the city of Milford for funding, everything that you all do. We were then asking for basically a rebate of a portion of that money, which is what the quote grant is, but that's what that money's been. There's a separate amount of money that is requested of borough taxpayers in addition to the standard taxes that Milford residents pay. And there's a tax bill that goes out which is substantially less than the Milford tax bill, and that's used to fund other things. So it's in other words, it's an additional cost independent of what sort of the standard Milford resident would pay. And what that does pay is it pays for additional, it primarily goes towards paying for a police officer for different parts during the summer to try to, if there's any issues relating to sort of a lot more of the crowds that come to that area of the city during that time of year. It pays for setting aside money for a police car. So I was sitting here earlier listening to the police chief talking about sort of the needs of the police department, and I could say that one of the benefits of having a borough like Woodmont is that the taxes, the separate taxes that are paid for by Woodmont residents actually fund a police vehicle, fund the payment of overtime to a police officer that mans that vehicle, and oftentimes that police car and that police officer is actually called to other parts of the city to actually do work on behalf of crime that may be happening in other parts of Milford. So there is actually sort of an additional benefit that the city gets by this sort of symbiotic relationship.
Okay, just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the $6 million. Is that paid is that paid by the borough directly to the city, or is it each individual homeowner in Woodmont pays a portion of that to the city?
That's correct. It's just like everyone in Milford has a property tax bill. They pay the property tax bill to the city of Milford. So if you're looking at sort of in aggregate, I'm using the property tax bill as a sort of the major source of revenue for the city from at least private residents. That money is being paid into the city by Woodmont residents.
And your position has been treasurer? Is that your position on the
I'm sort of a
board?
volunteer burgess. There's 6 burgesses that are volunteers, and there's 1 warden. And we divide up the general responsibilities, and my title is finance. So basically, I'm helping with the budget stuff.
Okay, because I was driving through the borough and I saw a sign. Is there an election? Is
Okay,
there an elected official?
There's every 2 years there is an election, which basically means that the residents of the borough come, and if there's a quorum, and sometimes we struggle to get the quorum, but if there's a quorum and there are enough people that vote, well, there have always been enough people that vote, they elect the burgesses and the warden under the terms of a charter which was established in 1903. And so that's where you get sort of the collection of 6 burgesses and 1 warden.
Okay, I appreciate the explanation. I just know that, I don't know all the details, and I'm sure people watching here tonight, on TV probably don't know all the details unless you live in Woodmont. So I appreciate your time, and thank you.
It's one of those anomalies. I think there's 6 or 7 of these types of boroughs around the state of Connecticut. I guess, was established in 1903 when you had a community that was in one end of Milford, and the main center was where we are here. And then at a time before there were cars, I think that there was a sense by the state legislature that it made sense to have at least a little assistance from some or other parts of the municipality in sort of helping with the city process. So, anything else? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Kip. The next department on our agenda is the Milford Preservation Commission, page 93. Mr. Mayor, can you answer any questions that the board may have?
Happy to answer any questions.
Anyone having any questions pertaining to the Milford Preservation Commission? Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, the Milford Preservation Commission is the commission that we established here a few years ago. Could you just real quickly, because it's come up in our discussions about that body operating within the city and what its authority is. Could you just, I know they meet once a month, and how do they work with the historic district and some of the other affiliated bodies in the city?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Alderman Smith. This is the board or the commission that we recently established about 3 years ago based on new state enabling legislation that allowed cities like Milford to adopt a preservation commission, which is separate and distinct from a historic district. A historic district has to have a contiguous set of properties for which it operates and has oversight over. A preservation commission, or at least Milford's preservation commission, can have properties for which it oversees that are scattered throughout the city that have historic significance, that are on the historic, the state historic registry or the national historic registry. And those are the properties for which the property owner is subject.
An example of this, which I bring up because it's relevant to something in Alderman Gaynor and Alderman Hardeman and particularly us, because it's in Laurel Beach. We applied, or actually were recommended by Michelle Kramer from the Historic Commission as one of the Laurel Beach Casino and the Laurel Beach Boardwalk or Seawall were deemed to be of some historic significance as a coastal community. This was because there was some money left over from the Hurricane Sandy FEMA funds, and the last of that was earmarked for identifying and registering some of these important historic sites on the coast, particularly, that were subject to the hurricane. We were very gratified to learn that the Laurel Beach, we only put the Laurel Beach Casino in for consideration, but it was approved last year on the State Historic Registry and earlier this year to the National Historic Registry. Now, the people in Laurel Beach are always concerned of any encumbrances or other controls that this particular statute of the historic district, State Historic District, would apply to this property. They're always fearful that it would be subject to outside review. That is, in fact, the case. The Historic Commission, by statute, does have the authority, if they were to transfer or perhaps try to do some significant renovations to the property, would pass review of this Historic Commission under state law. Is that your understanding as well?
They do have oversight over those specifically designated properties, so yes. And again, there are criteria that are laid out in our city ordinance and criteria that are laid out in the state enabling legislation as well.
Thank you.
Any more questions pertaining to the Milford Preservation Commission? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for answering those questions. The next department on our agenda is the Law Department, page 24. Good evening, Mr. Bertram.
Good evening, Chairman Vitro. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is John Bertram. I'm the city attorney. Don't really have a presentation for you because my budget is virtually identical to what it has been for, this is my 7th budget presentation. The only difference is it's actually reduced from last year, $2,544 overall, and that is a reduction in line item 534122, other legal fees, from $77,500 to $75,000 from what it was last year. A couple other changes where there was an increase in our mileage parking budget of what we requested from $250 to $500, and that's parking's gotten more expensive up in New Britain where our tax appeals are heard, so we've had to have some transfers to cover those costs. And our computer allotment outlays has gone up $155, but overall, it's an overall reduction of $2,544. The salaries are identical to what they are last year because other than myself, everybody else in my office is a member of the Town Hall Union, and their contract expires June 30th, 2019. So that's, I think, having watched a few of these hearings on YouTube, Peter budgets for those contracts that expire, but as it's presented to you, it's the same exact wages as last year. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions regarding the Law Department? Alderman Smith.
Just quick, because Alderman Vitale isn't here, but every year he asks about, I think it's the law books, isn't it?
I think that was Mayor Blake, when he was an alderman, used to ask about the law books. I
No,
believe
there's
the
something
phrase
that,
was scurry.
there's something that Ray
But
asks every
Alderman
year. I just
Vitale-
want to make sure it gets covered.
Alderman Vitale always asks about law books. The $4,000, it shows you it's always been characterized as law books, but that pays for our online subscription to Lexis, which, we get the most up-to-date. We have, it does cover some subscriptions that we have, the general statutes and the like, but predominantly we do not receive hardcover books. Those are more expensive. They're also not as up-to-date. Things change on a day-to-day basis in the law, so the online is much more reliable.
Thank you.
Any more questions pertaining to the law department? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening. Attorney Bertram, you mentioned the salaries that are posted in this budget book, just for a clarification. So these are subject to change? These are, will be increased on the next cycle? Is that what I'm understanding?
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Giannattasio, they are subject to change, yes, because the contract expires halfway through the fiscal year. So, we have to enter negotiations. I presume the union's going to ask for a general wage increase. So, yes, the anticipation is that the wages will increase. What that is subject to negotiations.
And that would include everyone except yourself?
Yes, but under I think it's the U2 ordinance, I would follow MSA, so that's a whole other one. Yeah, wouldn't include me. I don't follow the town hall union in terms of wage increases, correct.
Thank you.
Any more questions regarding the law department? Seeing none?
Thank you. I had to be careful how I answer that question because the town hall union president is two people to your left.
Duly noted.
You're gonna be with us for the Ethics Commission? Mr.
Yes,
Bertram?
Mr. Chair, I'm with you for the Ethics Commission. In looking at it, I present this each year, and it is virtually identical every year. Knock on wood. Once again, we haven't had to impanel the Ethics Commission this year. We do have to budget for training and postage and things if something comes up, because the reason why my office is charged with presenting the budget is because if there is an ethics complaint, we're the conduit for the complaint to ensure that somebody is appointed to process the complaint, do an investigation necessary, hold hearings if necessary. The Ethics Commission meets ad hoc when needed. I think this year they met for an organizational meeting. I've always recommended that they engage in some sort of training to understand their role. $100 is a little light for that, but they haven't undergone any training, and I know there is some free training they could too that is offered around the state. So we continue to try to look at that and steer them that way. But they are a appointed volunteer commission.
Thank you, Mr. Bertram. Does anybody else? Alderman Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, through you to our city attorney. Thank you, John. As long as you brought that up, the Ethics Commission, I want to follow up. I went out of my way to have somebody nominated, for the Ethics Commission, somebody who I thought was good, et cetera, and she was appointed. And it was only then that we had the conversation about ad hoc meetings. And this person was concerned that they didn't know enough, they were never trained, and for a lot of reasons, she was and is a very good candidate. But at that time, we said, speak to John, and I think we were simpatico about this, that there is, even through CCM, I think they have ethics trainings for commissions about issues that come up, and I was hopeful that that would happen. And then in the meantime, during that period of time, in my year tenure, I had a question about for the Ethics Commission, and I wound up going directly to you, and you, of course, were very helpful. But I wasn't sure that the Ethics Commission even knew what my question was about. It was something about planning and zoning and their function and role, et cetera. So, where is that? I mean, does the commission only meet ad hoc when there's a complaint?
Yes.
And are they equipped to do that?
I think they're equipped in terms of the members that serve on the commission are also quite capable.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the organizational meeting, who's the chair, vice chair, they've taken care of that. That does not suggest, however, in terms of if an issue came up where a complaint came in and that the Ethics Commission had to meet to investigate, adjudicate, that we wouldn't step in and say, okay, this is your charge, this is what you've done. We haven't done a practice run for them, is what would happen. It's all real life, real situations, so I'm sure we would assist them through the process.
But, of course, and it's not, it just came up because it
Yeah.
came up. But what about, what do other towns do? If we benchmark with other municipalities, do they train their Ethics Commission people?
They do it like, as far as I know from from other municipal attorneys that I've spoken with, this is what they do.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions regarding the Ethics Commission? Seeing no, thank you, Mr. Bertram.
Thank you all very much.
Next item on our agenda is Board of Finance, page 26. Any questions pertaining to the Board of Finance? I see none. Peter, you have any remarks? Would you like to? You don't have to. Just, okay, fine. We'll close under Board of Finance, so open up the next item on the agenda, the Mayor's Office.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We are winding down the departmental presentations. We're down to the final few departments. I am happy to answer any questions that you have under either the mayor's department or under general expenses on page 19. Both are relatively similar to years past, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Anyone have any questions pertaining to the Mayor's Office? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mayor Blake. We saved the best for last. Good evening, Mayor Blake. The question is in regards to your new titled position within your office, Chief of Staff. And can you first tell us the function of that position?
Sure. Just as brief background, there was an opening for the assistant mayor back in December. The former person that held that position was a city employee for over 40 years, did a great job, is now living a well-deserved retirement. And when that position opened up, I interviewed different folks, and before the interviews took place, I knew that I needed a person to fill that position with a real high skill set, someone who would help with the administration of the city, someone at a high caliber. And so we did change the duties and responsibility of that job description. I'm happy to get you a copy of the new job description from when it went to assistant mayor to the chief of staff position, similar to what most municipalities that are similarly situated to Milford have. Just as an example, places like West Haven and Stratford not only have a chief of staff position, but they have a chief administrative officer position, a deputy chief administrative officer position, constituent services. Milford is a lot leaner than really anywhere else, and we've managed well, but it is a growing complex city that needs additional support. So that was the change. That was when we went out to find the replacement for that position. We insisted on these new duties and responsibilities, and frankly, a higher skill set.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, and with that being said, Mayor Blake, so the position's salary has increased from $70,328 to $91,147, and you mentioned the importance of a higher skill set. We've just come off the law department, and I see that our assistant city attorney, someone who's went over and beyond and has a law degree, is earning $95,000. So I'm just trying to justify the cost, and help me to understand, this position includes a city car as well?
This position is at the same grade as the deputy or assistant public works director position. Again, it's much lower than similarly situated positions in towns like Stratford or West Haven, where this position has about a 20 to 25% higher salary. There is a city car for really any of our city positions as needed. So yes, this is not a personal car, but one that they use for city business.
So I guess, with the spending freeze and with, all the other departments trying to work over and beyond and be creative and efficient, you feel the need that this position is warranted at a higher salary with a car?
So, Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Giannatasio, there are about, if you look through the budget, there's about a dozen and a half position changes where the grade and the steps change as well as the job description. This is one of about a dozen and a half adjustments to the budget, which is about similar to what we have each and every year.
Just one final question. Mayor Blake, if you could please forward us that job description, I think that would be prudent at this time.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Any more questions regarding the mayor's office? Alderman Gaynor.
Through you, Mr. Chair, when you were interviewing Mayor Blake for the position, what were the general skill sets that you were looking for? And I know you'll forward the job description, but what are some of the highlights that would differentiate this job from perhaps what was done in the past?
To some degree, the job in the past focused on constituent services, which is still a huge part of the position now. The position now, though, liaisons more directly with each of the different department heads and serves more as, again, a chief of staff position would in other organizations that, have a $220 million budget, have a 2,000 employees if you include the Board of Ed too. So it's a complex organization that continues to push forward. And again, like I promised Alderman Giannatasio, I'm happy to give you a copy of the job description, what we put out in terms of duties and responsibilities and qualifications as well. I mean, I'm happy to read it to you. I have a copy here, but I'll forward along a copy as well.
Any more questions? Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up, Mayor Blake, the other issue on hand is with the position is our former employee did not realize any benefits. In this package, you also included benefits. So is there a specific reason why you did that?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Giantassio, the former person that, or the person that held this position formerly had retired from the city. Per ordinance, per pension agreement, per state statute, he was not allowed to, again, collect a second pension. So that was prohibited by law. He already received city benefits as a city retiree. The benefits here are the same as all other city employees. So this is part of the employment package.
Thank you.
Any more questions pertaining to the mayor's department? Seeing none, the next item is general expenses. I guess we covered that as well at the same time. So the last one is the Board of Aldermen. So what do we got? What do we want, Ben? Ladies and gentlemen? We want another pay raise or what? So is there any more questions regarding the Board of Aldermen? Seeing none, is there a motion to recess to the next budget meeting? The next budget meeting, by the way, in case everyone doesn't realize, it's going to be May 15th. That's next Wednesday, 7 o'clock. May 15th, Wednesday, May 15th. So we have a motion on the floor to recess to May 15th. All in favor? Opposed? We're in recess. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.